everyone, it's Ryan Liberty, and in this video I'm going to answer the question, what is victimization? Alright, I'm going to get to what victimization is in just a second here. First, I have to say that there may be the topic of abuse covered in this video, so if abuse triggers you in any way, if any kind of discussion of that harms you, then you don't have to watch the video. Perfectly fine. You can turn it off now and come back to it later when it's a more appropriate time for you, or if you just can't handle that period, you don't have to watch. Also completely acceptable. Also, if we mention emotional abuse in this video, I always like to make a point to say that we all do something that may be emotionally abusive here to there. It's when it becomes a pattern consistently over time that it becomes like a real problem, and we would call it abuse. So that's just something I like to add in when we're talking about emotional abuse. And finally, if you are in an abusive situation, I urge you to seek support, whether that be through friends, family, support groups, online support groups, maybe a domestic violence shelter, hotline, anything that you can do. There are people out there who will help you, so I just greatly urge you to seek it out and to make your voice heard, because if you need help, there are people there who will be able to help you. So I always like to make that point when we're bringing up topics of abuse. Now, all of that out of the way, what is victimization? So I've got notes as always, because I like to make sure I'm not just saying things out of my mouth. So victimization is doing something basically that makes somebody else a victim. So technically the victim would be victimized, and that would be victimization. And it's something that can happen to individual people, it can happen to families, it can happen to groups of people, it can happen to entire communities of people. And the sad thing about victimization is that it can lead to something like a trauma and stressor related disorder, which I have a video on what those are if you want any clarification on that. But it's basically just doing something to somebody that would make them a victim. So I have examples here, just, to give you an idea. And it's a very serious thing. So at the end of this, I'm going to give you like a quick, long example of ways that victimization affects somebody, because it's something that doesn't really stop with one person. And that's something I really want to get across in this video. But first, some quick examples of what we're talking about when we're talking about victimization. So things like physical assault and battery, theft, dating, relationship, domestic violence, stalking, threat of harm, bullying, cyberbullying, emotional abuse and gaslighting, rape, sexual harassment, sexual exploitation, things like recording sexual activity without somebody's consent, distributing recordings of sexual activity without somebody's consent, allowing people to see sexual behavior without that person's consent, voyeurism, knowingly passing an STD onto somebody, prostituting another person, human trafficking, sex trafficking, and giving somebody a drug or alcohol so to make them unable to give consent for things. All of these are examples of victimization. So I wanted to give a longer, more well-rounded, I'm all about that on this channel, human perspective on what victimization could look like. So I wrote out like a little scenario here. This is not somebody real. This is just something I came up with because I've seen it happen to many different people. You maybe have an experience yourself, and if you do, I'd love for you to share it. So I'll remind you at the end of this video, but this is one way that I see victimization happening. So Javier experiences being stalked and threatened. He finds notes in his mailbox and on his car windshield saying that he's going to be killed soon, he's going to die. So he worries about his safety and the safety of his family. He calls the police, but the police aren't really able to do anything beyond filing a report because he doesn't really know who's doing this, and he's never witnessed anybody doing it. He's tried installing security cameras, and it stopped on his mailbox. I guess the person figured out what was going on, but he still gets these notes on his car, and he still feels like somebody's watching him. So to protect himself, he becomes hypervigilant. He's always, every time he gets in his car, he's looking to see is somebody nearby. He's scanning his environment. He purchases a gun to protect himself. But now, since he's so hypervigilant, he double checks his door at night, and he's concerned about his safety. He's concerned about the safety of his family, of his son, of his wife, and he has trouble falling asleep at night. Now, because he's having trouble falling asleep, he winds up showing up late to work very often in the morning, and he's not able to perform his job as well as he normally would because he's facing insomnia now. One night he hears a noise, and he grabs his gun instinctively and kind of goes into the kitchen to see what it is. He raises his gun up because he sees somebody's there, and thankfully he realizes this is just his son, but now he's freaked out that he raised a gun to his son. And, he's finding that he has more anxiety just as he goes throughout the day. He's having trouble sleeping. Now he just has anxiety. He's becoming afraid to leave his house. Somebody tapped him on the shoulder in the supermarket to kind of let him know that he dropped something, and he jumped up into the air. He was incredibly embarrassed by it, and that just compounded the anxiety, and he's just afraid. He has trouble leaving the house, so on top of the insomnia and not being able to leave the house in the morning, now he's unable to get to work on time, and they finally fire him from his job. So he goes out to do his shopping, and he sees that somebody is by his car, and he sees that they're putting a note on the car. So he's high anxiety, he's freaking out, he grabs his gun, and he shoots the person. Obviously he wouldn't do that if he wasn't in wow anxiety kind of a state. He winds up in jail, and now his wife is having a hard time taking care of their son. The son is feeling the stress of this, the wife is feeling the stress of this, and the family of the person who he shot is now feeling the stress of all of this. It was a traumatic event, it scared bystanders, so it ripples out from there. So the victimizing of him by this one person who is putting notes on his car has rippled throughout his family, it's rippled throughout all the people involved. When he finally wound up killing this person, it obviously hurt that person's life because they're no longer alive, and it can send ripples throughout the whole community as news coverage covers it. They can say that there's an epidemic of this kind of a thing going on. So I just want to make clear, again, this is a fictional story, it's not true, but it's an example of how victimization can spread, and it can lead to long-term poor mental health effects for more than one person, for a family, for an entire community sometimes. So it's important for us to be aware of the types of things that would make somebody become a victim, that are victimizing, and to put in place ways to prevent that from happening. Things like laws, things like mental health education, resources. I forgot to mention, I wanted to say in this story, this fictional Javier, he did go to see a psychiatrist, but the medication wasn't working, so we can't fault him. He did everything that he could. So there are definitely ways that we can stop victimization. Like I said, laws, education, child care, raising, teaching people to raise children, having better systems in our society to foster the raising of a child, things like that. But I'd love to hear ideas that you have, experiences that you've had. Please leave them below, and I thank you for learning about victimization with me today. Hey, it's Ryan Liberty. If you liked that video, please give it a thumbs up, share with a friend, and leave any questions or comments down below, because that would really help me out. If you're somebody who's gone through a traumatic event and you're feeling cut off from the people around you, I have a free course that will help with that, so please click to get it. And if you'd like to see the rest of my videos, please click subscribe. As always, I want to remind you that your life matters. Nobody can question your worth. However it is that you're feeling, whatever it is that you're going through, it's okay, and you are loved. Thanks again for watching.